Just think about it for a second. What career path would you choose if your father and uncles were right-hand men to the biggest drug lords in the world's most notorious cartels? The youngest Sinaloa cartel hitman was just 15. His name was Raul Meza Torres, and he was the son of renowned hitman Raul Meza Ontiveros. You might think Ontiveros would do everything in his power to not let his son end up in the same profession, but things were different in this case. In today's video, we'll talk about the short-lived yet truly controversial life and criminal career of Raul Meza Torres, the 15-year-old hitman of the Sinaloa drug cartel, whose legacy continues to haunt the history of Latin American cartels. Follow along as we reveal how shockingly short and tragic this hitman's stint truly was. Who would have thought that a small state on the coast of Mexico would give birth to one of the greatest drug cartels to ever be formed, and also to one of the most tragic young death stories ever? The state of Sinaloa became home to one of the biggest and most widespread drug cartels under the leadership of Ismael Mario Zambada Garcia, better known as El Mayo. The greatest drug cartel of the 1980s had many names, such as the Guzman-Zambada Organization, the Pacific Cartel, the Federation, and the Blood Alliance. This Blood Alliance had many allegiant members, who made it one of the most feared organizations on the globe. El Mayo had many loyal workers, out of which one was LJT or Javier Torres Felix. LJT wreaked havoc in Sinaloa along with his right-hand man Raul Meza Ontiveros, better known as LM6. They were so close that Ontiveros married LJT's sister Ada Elizabeth Torres Felix. You might think a man like Raul Meza Ontiveros, LM6, had seen the world and that he knew better. But did he? He put his young son Cesar Raul Meza Torres on the same path as himself. As young as an early teenager, Torres was heavily inspired by the glint and glitter of his father's lifestyle. He adored the artillery, the weapons, the cars, and the sheer power his father had over so many others. They began calling him El Mini Six, inspired by his father's alias. With LJT, a notorious hitman of El Mayo, as an uncle and Ontiveros as a father, Raul Meza Torres had all the right reasons to be inspired by the drug lord life. He looked up to the men and how the world danced on their fingers. Who wouldn't want that life? Torres certainly did. Being LM6's son and LJT's nephew meant Raul Meza Torres grew up around shady drug deals, the dark side of business, guns and ammunition, and all the wrong kind of people. What kind of damage would all that do to a young mind, you might think? Torres had a heavy social media following and was on the way to becoming an influencer, even with his picture showing him holding guns and ammunition of all sorts. From a very young age, he began inspiring so many of the young people around him to join the Sinaloa drug cartel. It was almost as if he was the glamorous poster boy of the ugly side of drug cartels, giving it the ultimate PR and image boost. Torres loved his luxuries and was often seen posting on social media with other members of the greatest drug cartel in history. He ruled the streets of Sinaloa with a fake ID and exercised his father's power to the ultimate limit. He was often seen around some heavy-duty cars because he loved drag racing. He had not even grown tall enough to hold a proper rifle by the time pictures of him with even bigger guns began circulating on social media. His innocent, handsome face would not give away the fact that he was in the making of becoming the youngest hitman in Sinaloa drug cartel history. In early 2007, Raul Meza Torres met Roja Felix, who became one of his great acquaintances, and the two began a friendship that would end in Torres's tragic death in 2010, while Felix's true colors would show. More on that towards the end of the video. As early as 2005, Torres had seen his father being a celebrated man among the drug lords themselves, and he somewhat took that as inspiration. He wanted to be exactly that, a powerful man with a lot of money and a life that kept him on the edge. Maybe it was an adrenaline rush that the young hitman was trying to feed, but it ended up being a very short-lived high. All things come to an end, good or bad as they may be, and so did young Raul Meza Torres. Things took a dark turn when Raul Meza Ontiveros, Torres' father, was tortured and killed brutally. It was the 27th of March 2007, and Torres was only 15 years old. The authorities do not know how this mysterious death took place. There are many unanswered questions to date. All anyone could say was that there was a shootout between two armed parties in the Las Quintas neighborhood. When the police arrived, they found out a heavily wounded man was taken to a private clinic nearby, and this man was none other than Raul Meza Ontiveros, or LM6, as many knew him in Sinaloa. Ontiveros was declared dead after a few hours, and the report stated that he had been severely wounded even before he was shot. Some reports even went on to say it was a mercy killing or a coup de grace. Many accounts of the incident narrated that Ontiveros was dropping his girlfriend at Montebello when armed unidentified suspects rained bullets on him. The case remains full of unresolved mysteries and plagued with questions. His father's death made Raul Meza Torres make efforts to take up the empty position, but fate had some other plans. On 9 October 2007, it had been a few months after his father's brutal murder. Torres found himself in hot water with the police. It was the same neighborhood his father had been shot in, Las Quintas. Torres, just 16, was pulled over by the police for driving a vehicle without license plates and illegal ammunition in the car. Torres, along with two other underage boys, Brian Raul Rodriguez Verdugo, aged 14, and Jesus Arle Perez, aged 17, was arrested, but let go because he was a minor. It wasn't long before Torres ran into more trouble with the police. 2 years after his last encounter with the police, Torres attracted trouble again. It was 19 June 2009. Raul Meza Torres was in Las Quintas drag racing, one of his favorite things to do when the Sinaloan police showed up. The police demanded a random checkup of the vehicles when Torres and his friends resisted and began shooting as retaliation. The police opened fire as the boys fled and left the vehicles behind after an officer was injured in the shootout. It was found out later on that the vehicles belonged to Raul Meza Torres, and a lot of ammunition, like the FM 5.7x 28mm used for the FN57 pistol, 223 Remington, 38 Super, and 45 ACP cartridges were found in the cars. Raul Meza Torres had a short stint as a criminal and son of a celebrated criminal. His time was up. On 25 April 2010, Torres was stopped at a traffic light for a random car check in Zapopan, Jalisco, when he panicked and opened fire on the policemen. It was early morning, and the police felt something suspicious about his vehicle, so he was asked to stop for a routine search. His dear friend Rojas Felix was by his side and felt invincible and immortal. But is anyone truly? Meza Torres murdered police officer Jamie Vicente Morales Dominguez, who died at once after being cleanly shot in the head. He managed to severely injure police officer Jose Luis Monroy with 3 gunshots, while also being shot himself. Rojas Felix, being the true friend he was, tried to flee the scene, but was caught by police backup. The car was loaded with ammunition yet again. A 38 Super used by Rojas Felix and 9mm used by Meza Torres handguns, 22 rounds of ammunition and 2 cartridges were found. Torres was pronounced dead soon after, and his body was handed over to his aunt, Maria Luisa Torres Felix, and his sister, Adriana Meza Torres. His body remained in the morgue for 4 days, until on April 29, 2010, he was buried in a silver casket. There were many narco-corridos, better known as drug ballads, written on his life and death. One of them was by his drag racing partner, Jesus Arle Perez. That was the tragic end of Raul Meza Torres, El Mini 6, the youngest hitman of the Sinaloa drug cartel and poster boy of the cartel's glamorous life. So what do you think? Was it a young ambitious mind that wanted too much? Or was this brainwashing of an innocent boy? Let us know what you think in the comments. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to our channel. Turn on the notifications to find out every time we post.